Did you know that before Gods and Monsters, the Snyder Cut, and the DCEU, Warner Brothers' plan to go head-to-head with Marvel and Disney was to release a trilogy of movies starring their big guns, the Justice League, and that movie was going to be helmed by the original Road Warrior himself, George Miller. Unfortunately, that movie was just not meant to be, and it has become yet another one of the legends of fandom. Greetings fanboys and fangirls, I'm ERod and I'm the Blockbuster Buster, and welcome to Legends of Fandom, where we look at the fanboy films and shows that almost happened. Today, our story begins in 2007, during the genesis of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The first Iron Man movie was on the horizon, and Marvel Studios made their 5-year plan to release a big-budget Avengers movie very public. So Warner Brothers, who has held the rights of the DC characters since the late 70s and basically invented the formula of how to make money with these properties, was not going to take this sitting down. So from Warner Brothers' point of view, Marvel was kicking things off with their B-list characters and slowly building up to their first big-budget movie. So their strategy to counteract that was to immediately put all their A-list characters into one movie and get it into theaters quickly before Marvel's plan could come to fruition, and thus began the very rushed pre-production process of the big badass movie that would come to be known as Justice League Mortal. Enter George Miller, who might be best known for creating and directing the Mad Max franchise, but had spent the better part of a decade writing and directing more family-friendly entertainment. Suffice it to say, Miller was ready to come back to his action movie roots, and directing the biggest superhero movie ever was a challenge that was right up his alley. The original plan was for filming to start on February 2008 at Fox Studios Australia, with Peter Jackson's Weta Workshop creating the hero's iconic costumes, and presumably its sister company, Weta Digital, would have been tapped to handle the special effects. The real head-scratcher here is that Warner Brothers was expecting Miller to complete both principal photography and post-production for a movie that had multiple action sequences, over 100 special effects shots, and 7 main characters in just over a year, as they intended to release Justice League Mortal in June of 2009. On a side note, the highest grossing movie that year was Avatar, so the question remains, could Justice League have derailed the box office gross of the Blue Cat people from outer space? The answer is no, absolutely not. Apparently, James Cameron is invincible, and we should just accept that. Casting kicked off in October 2007. Some of the actors who auditioned include Adam Brody, Joseph Cross, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Michael Angarano, Teresa Palmer, Max Thoreau, Scott Porter, and Adrian Palicki, who would go on to play Wonder Woman in the now infamous Wonder Woman pilot. I swear, one day, that woman is going to be a question on Jeopardy! And Jessica Biel was outright offered the role of Wonder Woman but turned it down. Ultimately, Miller's plan was to cast young unknown actors, with the consensus that they would grow into their roles throughout the course of the 3 movies. These were his final choices: DJ Contrana as Superman, Armie Hammer as Batman, no comment, Megan Gale as Wonder Woman, Common as Green Lantern, Adam Brody as The Flash, Santiago Cabrera as Aquaman, and Hugh Keys-Byrne as Martian Manhunter. Famously, these casting choices were leaked online, much to the disapproval of the fanbase, most of which felt that more seasoned actors should play these characters. Personally, I think most of these choices were solid, and I would have liked to have seen these actors play the parts before passing judgment. Warner Brothers tasked writing duo Kieran and Michael Mulroney with writing the first draft of the screenplay. In March of 2007, they would turn in the only finished draft of the screenplay that would ever exist. One that would combine elements from 3 different DC Comics storylines: the OMAC Project, Countdown to Final Crisis, and JLA Tower of Babel. But the question remains, what would have Justice League Mortal been about? The movie begins in true Zack Snyder fashion with a funeral, as one of our heroes has already died, and the remaining members of the League are paying their respects. Cut to 2 days earlier. Batman sits in the Batcave alone using Brother Eye to spy on the other heroes. And what is Brother Eye, you might ask? It is a satellite program with artificial intelligence that Batman designed specifically to spy on and gather information about every metahuman on the planet, which Batman can then use to design countermeasures in case any of those metas were to go rogue. It is important to note that in the comics, Batman has really good motivations for designing such a device, as he discovers that Zatanna and a few fellow Leaguers erased his memory when he discovers the very questionable thing they did to Dr. Light in the Identity Crisis miniseries. Batman sees this as an abuse of power and creates Brother Eye and his countermeasures to ensure that us lowly humans will not be victimized by metas again. In the script, no such motivations exist. He's just a paranoid weirdo. Meanwhile, in Denver, Colorado, Martian Manhunter is working a case in his secret identity of Detective John Jones, when he finds a seahorse in a jar that sprays him with something that makes his skin constantly burst into flames, and nothing, not even jumping into a body of water, can put out the blaze. This, of course, is one of the methods Batman designed to subdue the members of the Justice League, which means that someone hacked Brother Eye. So of course, Batman tells no one. Are we sure that he's supposed to be one of the heroes in this? Thankfully, Wonder Woman and Flash show up. Wundy captures the blazing Manhunter with her lasso of truth, and the two transport him to New York, to Diana's conservatory, where they submerge Martian Manhunter in an ornate bathing pool that keeps him from bursting into flames as long as he stays submerged. Superman shows up and is briefed on the situation, and with a seahorse being their only lead, he decides to go question Aquaman about it. Racist? Just because a seahorse is involved, you automatically assume an Atlantean is behind this? WTF, Superman? Apparently, Supes and Arthur have some beef in this movie, as the King of the Seven Seas is initially hesitant to cooperate with the investigation, implying that he lost his hand while helping ungrateful surface dwellers, which he had replaced with one made out of magical water. But ultimately, he agrees to help because Wonder Woman is involved. Our heroes, everyone! Artie doesn't achieve much, as shortly after arriving at Wonder Woman's conservatory, he gets stung by a robotic mosquito that injects nanites into his body and make him aquaphobic. And if Aquaman doesn't have contact with water for 24 hours, he will start to lose his powers, and if he dries out, he will die. That's right, that is Aquaman's weakness, not Namor's. I'm not entirely sure why they copied it in Wakanda Forever, but there you go. Meanwhile, John Stewart, the Green Lantern, is working in his office when he too gets a dose of, you guessed it, nanites. Only these nanites render him blind. This, for some reason, make him lose control of his powers, and he starts destroying the entire building with his constructs. Luckily, Superman and Flash show up and subdue him and bring him back to the conservatory. Gee, 3 superheroes have nearly died due to Batman's negligence. This would be a really good time for him to step in and make things right. Nope! Batman is running his own investigation, solo, and discovers that the one who hacked Brother Eye and is using his methods to hurt metahumans is billionaire Maxwell Lord, played by Jay Baruchel? Hiccup was set to play Maxwell Lord?
That casting is good, but it could be better.
Lord, who gained his fortune as the owner of the popular fast food chain restaurant Planet Krypton, important plot point, hates metahumans because he was part of Project OMAC, Observational Metahuman Activity Construct. The project consisted of altering the minds of young test subjects via, you guessed it, nanites, to turn them into, and I quote, psychic warriors, to spy on, subdue, and hopefully even mind control metahumans. Only one test subject survived Project OMAC, number 11. Wait, no, it was Lord. Lord was the only survivor of Project OMAC. Also, Talia al Ghul, played by Teresa Palmer, is Lord's main hench girl in this, which is really weird because in the comics Talia has little to nothing to do with Maxwell Lord, but they included her in this role anyway because she's one of Batman's most recurring love interests, and that becomes a very important plot point later in the script. So, there you go. The way Lord finds out about Brother Eye and Batman's metahuman countermeasures is that Talia passes nanoscopic cameras into Batman's mouth during an occasion where the two were making out. Because as the Dark Knight discovers when he comes across a file about him and Brother Eye's programming, Batman's only weakness is love. Lord sets a trap for Batman, where he is attacked by bikers. But these are no ordinary bikers. These bikers are full of, now say it with me, nanites, that transform them into OMAC drones, who then give Batman the beating he has deserved since the beginning of this story. Batman is beaten so badly that he has to resort to wearing a special exosuit for the rest of the movie. And then and only then does Batman go to the other heroes and admit that maybe, just maybe, he up. Batman finds the rest of the heroes in the Fortress of Solitude, where Superman and Wonder Woman try to use Kryptonian technology to figure out what's affecting their friends. When Batman shows up and confesses to them that it is all his fault, Wanda responds by punching him in his stupid bat face. But no time to kiss and make up, as our heroes are attacked by none other than Mr. Mitzius Pitlick. I'm kidding, they're attacked by nanites again. This time the microscopic miscreants attack the fastest man alive, when he answers his phone believing it's a call from his wife. But it's not Iris West Allen on the line, it's the nanites, who enter Flash's body, making him vibrate uncontrollably. So much so that he vibrates through the Earth, popping out on the other side of the planet. When gravity takes hold, he vibrates through the Earth again, returning to the Fortress of Solitude where he started vibrating. There, Wonder Woman snares him with her magic lasso, which stops him in his place. Manhunter then uses his telepathy to guide Green Lantern, who creates microsurgical tools that find and remove all the nanites in Flash's body. The heroes then begin using their powers to remove the nanites from one another, and then mercifully, they're finally nanite-free. So now that the great nanite crisis is over, our heroes band together and go to fight Maxwell Lord. No, actually, no, they all go in different directions to do different things. Most of the heroes stay in the Fortress of Solitude nursing their wounds. Batman follows Talia back to Lord's hideout alone, and Wonder Woman takes Flash to a Planet Krypton restaurant, important plot point, so he can consume enough calories to regain his strength after all the vibrating. Barry's nephew, Wally West, played by the late Anton Yelchin, meets them there and helps Barry conduct some research on the disabled nanites. It is important to note that Wally already has superpowers at this point in the script, and no explanation is given as to how he gains said powers. I guess it, runs in the family? Sorry about that. Through their research, Barry and Wally discovered everything about Project OMAC and how Lord is behind it all. But no time for high fives, as at that very moment, Batman is discovered sneaking into Lord's hideout, and the villain initiates Phase 1, which not only transforms all of his henchmen into OMAC drones, programmed to kill the Dark Knight, but it also turns a third of the population of the planet into OMACs. You see, Lord had been feeding, you guessed it, nanites to all the people around the globe who ate at his Planet Krypton restaurants. See? Huh? See? I told you it was an important plot point. Flash, along with Wally, who already has his own superhero suit, speed off to fight OMACs around the world and save as many people as they can. Martian Manhunter, using his power of plot convenience, can sense that Batman is in danger and alerts the others. Superman and Wonder Woman get there first and save Batman from the OMACs. But before they can apprehend Lord, the villain uses his psychic powers to mind control Superman and make him fight Wonder Woman. Gee, an evil and/or mind-controlled Superman? We've never seen that before. The fight scene between Supes and Wendy was meant to be the big action set piece of the movie, seeing the two powerful heroes fight into outer space, where the amazing Amazon powerbombs Superman into the moon. The Man of Steel retaliates by punching the amazing Amazon back to Earth, where she crash lands into the Hudson River. But when Superman arrives to finish her off, Aquaman is waiting for him with an army of sea creatures, which Superman defeats easily. I guess Aquaman forgot that he wields the Trident of Poseidon, which is a magical weapon, and Superman is vulnerable to magic, but whatever. This begins a sequence of each hero taking turns trying to stop Superman rather unsuccessfully. Green Lantern creates a giant Superman to fight him, but the Man of Tomorrow easily crushes the kaiju. Manhunter attacks him psychologically by taking the shape of his mother, Martha! No, not Martha. His biological mother, Lara L. But Supes sees through the deception and bitch slaps Manhunter into next Tuesday. While this is happening, Wonder Woman snares Maxwell Lord in her lasso of truth and forces him to tell her how to free Superman from his mind control. Through the villain's explanation, Wonder Woman realizes that the only way to free Superman is by killing Lord. So knowing that the fate of the world is at stake, Wonder Woman steps up to Maxwell Lord, grabs him by the head, and doesn't kill him. That's right, in this version, Wonder Woman doesn't kill Maxwell Lord. Batman does. On a sidebar, if fans had a bad reaction to Wonder Woman doing this in the comics, and then Superman doing the exact same thing in Man of Steel, I can't even imagine the reaction if their precious Cape Crusader would have snapped the neck in a multi-million-dollar movie. But there's a twist. The snap heard round the world didn't kill Lord, who somehow transferred his consciousness to a computer, which then merges with Talia, who then dies in Batman's arms. So not only did they turn Talia al Ghul, who is Batman's equal in almost every way, into a hench girl, but they were also going to fridge her. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that there. With Talia dead, Lord needs a new person to possess, so he jumps into the Flash, who knows that the only way to stop Lord is to sacrifice himself. So he runs around the world faster and faster until he reaches light speed and dies, the way Barry Allen always dies, by crumbling into dust and leaving his empty suit behind. Yes, they were going to kill the Flash in his first cinematic appearance. And for those of you wondering how exactly Barry avoided Lord's control long enough to sacrifice himself, I have no clue. And so our story comes to full circle, as it is revealed that the funeral that the heroes were attending in the first scene was actually Barry's, and that the Flash that was present in the scene is actually Wally, who has now taken up his uncle's mantle. But wait, there's an epilogue. Our heroes meet in the Fortress of Solitude, where Superman suggests that they form a team, some kind of a league of justice. But before the others have a chance to take the oath and collect their JLA communicators, Superman gets an alert that a giant alien is descending on Earth. So our story ends, with our heroes jumping into action to fight Starro the Conqueror. And thus we arrive at the most important question in this video. If this movie already had a director, script, and cast in place, how come it didn't happen? Well, while the script wasn't the worst, I think we can all agree it needed work. Unfortunately, the Mulroneys had to stop working halfway through their second draft of the script because of the writer's strike. The strike went on for about a year, and Miller understandably refused to move forward without a finished script, so Warner's moved the release date to 2010. As that was happening, the Dark Knight trilogy became one of the most successful franchises under the Warner banner. And with the final installment about to be released in 2012, Justice League Mortal was delayed yet again to avoid diluting the Dark Knight Rises box office by releasing too many movies close together with Batman in them. The choice to prioritize Batman over Justice League would come back to bite them in the ass, as The Avengers was released that year, which not only outgrossed The Dark Knight Rises, but was the highest grossing movie of the year. Eventually, Miller would drop out of the project to work on a long gestating passion project that we know now as Mad Max Fury Road. So Warner Brothers offered the reins of Justice League Mortal to Christopher Nolan, who turned them down flat, as he was done making comic book movies. So once his duties with the Dark Knight trilogy had been fulfilled, he moved on to a few passion projects of his own. Furthermore, by this point, it was evident that Marvel Studios' cinematic universe model worked, a fact that was cemented when Disney bought the company and took over as the sole distributor of all their films. And so Justice League Mortal was shelved in favor of a similar release model, which we would come to know as the DCEU. But how do you feel about this? Would you have liked to have seen George Miller's Justice League Mortal, or are you happy with the way things turned out? Feel free to say so in the comment section below, as we have reached the end of this video. So, do you know of any other fanboy films or shows that almost happened? Feel free to let me know at erod@inbox.com. And who knows, your suggestion might end up being the next topic of Legends of Fandom. Until then, I'm ERod, and I'm the Blockbuster Buster.